Is a fear of yours is that your agents are going to leave your team? Well, guess what? They might leave your team anyways, but why don't you let them build a brand within your team and really let themselves shine and highlight all the best things that they have to offer? This episode is packed full of all the ways that your agents can operate their own personal brand within your team brand and have it all be one beautiful synchronicity. Let's dive in.
You're listening to the Girl Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast, where we invite you to check your ego at the app, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to dive into all things real estate marketing, social media, friendship, hardship, love, money mindset, and all the things that celebrate you as a badass boss babe.
We're here to encourage you, show up for you, give you a loving kick in the pants when you need it most, and be your soft place to land on the hardest of days. So pull up a seat at our table and get ready to be inspired and start living your best life by design.
Welcome to the Girl Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast. We are so excited you're here.
Okay, girls, let's dive in. Okay, Bus Bench babes, today I'm interviewing Kristi on the podcast, and we're going to talk all about the importance of brands. We all know that you have to have a brand, and if you're not operating a brand, like really good luck staying in business. It's going to be a rough one, but any sort of business, real estate or not, you have to be operating a brand. And we're going to talk all about our team and how we help agents on our team build brands that operate and execute within our brand and under the umbrella of the BPR experience.
That's right. You just heard we're going to talk about how to let your team members do it on your team.
I know. It's not the norm.
Yeah, I know.
But we're going to dig into all the things. And I'm going to interview Kristi. I'm going to ask her all the questions that if you were sitting next to me, you'd be whispering in my ear and you'd want to know. So let's do this. Let's dive in.
Let's do it. I'm excited. Here we go. And it's just way less work for me just sitting here listening to you.
Yes. Okay. So recently, Kristi hosted a social media content calendar intensive with the team. And the intent of this workshop was to get everyone on the team to walk away with a 30-day content calendar, like fully ready to just like execute and, push the start button that totally was aligned with each of their own business and personal brands. And then sort of by default, this intensive really started to like bring out their brand, and they sort of was able to like learn all the nuts and bolts of repurposing content and what that could look like for themselves. And we were learning like where all the misses were happening and excuses were showing up. And so many of the agents, they were feeling like they were too busy and like, how does this work? And they didn't know how to batch content and how to get your message out there. And so it was a really big day.
It was a big day. It was
and
long.
A lot of like really good things came out of it.
I agree. I loved it.
So, well, like Kristi, let's share a little bit about like what makes our approach to business and branding different here at the BPR experience.
Oh, do we have like 3 hours?
It's a loaded question, right?
It's such a loaded question. So what makes us different? Gosh, so many things. So how do I nutshell this? First of all, we allow agents to have a brand under the umbrella of the BPR experience, which is
so different.
It's so unique. And I'm not going to say that other people aren't doing it, but they're not doing it nearly at the level that we're doing it. And so this is something that, gosh, is a really big miss, I think. And so we allow them. So we do that branding deep dive, which we talked about quite a bit on this podcast. And we do the branding deep dive, get to their inner workings, figure out how they're going to best support their clients, help them through all their work with them, and how to execute that brand so it speaks to their clients as well. So we do all of that with them. And then we allow them to execute it underneath the umbrella of the BPR experience, which is so, so different. So I would definitely say our approach in that regard is really unique. It's really unique. And what we were seeing at conferences and other real estate teams, they don't really allow their agents to have a voice. And I have a lot to say about that, but I'll pause that for a second.
Well, like, what do you think happens? Like, it feels like sometimes there can be misses when people are building brands, and not even with an agent on a team, just in general, like there can be misses. So what do you think like maybe teams are missing out on when it comes to brand building and like agents within a team? and the disconnect between the agent and the team, like what does that look like? What do you see out there?
Big question.
It is. It's a loaded question.
So I definitely think when it comes to teams, so if we're just speaking about a team operating their team brand, right? So like the BPR Experiences brand, if you look at team pages still in real estate, they do not have personality nearly the same as like a personal brand would. They are so many like just sold or for sale or like a client review. And there's really not that personal touch on the team brand, which is honestly such a big miss because so many times you're going to get followers on multiple platforms. And when you do, that follower is only going to see, X% of what you're posting. So when you speak about a team's brand, they might not see necessarily what you're speaking about on your page, but they might be seeing it on the team page and the crossover there and the connections you can make. So there are just huge misses as far as how a team brand is executed. And I swear they're still just using all the same templates, a lot of them, which is very, very confusing this far in the game and what we know about brand building. And the team brand is almost like an afterthought, or it's the reverse. The team brand is out front and center, and then the brands of the agents, including the founder of the team, are just these like little tiny little specks in the social media world or in the marketing world. And so those are some really big misses there. Just I think finding that balance of how to operate them both together, and then just how visually your team brand is coming across is a huge miss.
What about like the disconnect between the agent and the actual team? Like, do you feel like there's things missing there? Yeah.
So this goes with, again, with a lot of teams not allowing their agents to operate a brand with underneath that structure. So
I feel like that's more often than not how most teams are set up.
It's definitely more often than not. And gosh, that's just one that I don't agree with, but I'm going to pause that for now. So when we talk about like the biggest missing thing and the disconnect between the agent and the brand, again, it goes to like you're either just like using one platform. So if we take yours, for instance, Beth, like you have your what we call personal page, but honestly, it's a business page, right? So your personal page and then the team page, and you're operating your voice. The team is an extension of who you are on your personal page. And so what's happening is people a lot of times, teams will operate that team page as like this completely separate entity that feels very corporate and very unrelatable and very stale. And like, we just did X amount of volume. And then, we brought this agent on and this was like really heavy template. It feels like very impersonal. Not that you shouldn't talk about agents you bring on, but how they're speaking about them. The brand voice is so strange when it comes to the team brands. I think as agents, our personal brands are getting a little bit better. But as team brands, it's like they're afraid to cross over into something that might like turn off a client or turn off another realtor. And it's just this really strange space right now out there because there's such a difference between those team brands and the personal brands. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be any differences. There should be, because they are kind of geared towards two different spaces. You can attract clients in a different way on your personal page than you can on that business team page. However, it needs to like look and feel and have the same vibe as your personal page. It just doesn't make sense. So when we think of the BPR experience, how we speak to our clients, how we serve them, and then we think of how you're speaking to your clients on your page, it's a very similar dialogue. It's a very similar feel. And I think that is probably like the biggest miss that's happening right now, is treating it like, well, we don't want people to see too many personal things about us on the team page, or we don't want to get like too deep with our clients. And again, not airing your dirty laundry out on social media. But you're making it feel so stale and so corporate. And like, why would I even follow you? It just doesn't make sense to me. And this goes for even really, really large teams. I'm not just saying for like a smaller team or even a medium-sized team, a really large team. And yes, are they successful? Hugely successful. Like if we look at the sales that are happening, in the larger teams, of course, they're at the top. However, when we think about where they could be versus where they're at, if they actually executed that team brand at a level that really communicated with their clients, well, that's like something that we don't have the numbers for, but I can sort of guess you would have an even larger team, an even greater success, an even wider reach, which then what would that do? I mean, impact your business in a whole nother way.
Yeah. Well, how can that be done successfully so it's like win-win for everybody? You sort of touched on that. But are there things that you think that could be done differently?
As far as like, so this is like sort of a little bit more of a complicated question. So if we're talking about if your agents on your team, how they're operating their brands versus, so I guess what I'm speaking more as like the founder of the team, right? You own the team. So your brand and the team brand. And so I think really connecting them and making sure that the voice feels the same, that it feels very similar, that you are attracting clients on both pages, understanding that on your personal page, you can cast a little bit wider of a net in a little different way. So I think just really understanding that they work together instead of independently from one another would be the biggest thing to really think about. I
don't think most people think about it that way.
No, I think a lot is like...
It feels really like there's a line in the sand and that they're two very separate entities.
Yeah, and it's like this thing where, okay, I don't want anyone to know I have struggles with imposter syndrome. So I'm going to make sure that my team page feels so different and not share my personal page with anybody else. And it's like, really? Okay. Like what you're putting out there in the social media space, in the digital world, you should be okay with every single one of your clients you've ever worked with and anyone they would refer to you being okay with seeing. Or it shouldn't go on any page.
Yeah.
So there's such a big miss there.
Yeah. Okay, so you run a team right now, and yet you're really nervous to allow your agents to build personal brands. How can a team lead frame things in their mind to be a positive thing versus a negative thing?
Oh, okay. We could go on and on and on about this, I think. And this is the norm. This is absolutely the norm. If you're not doing this on your team, like you're a unicorn like us. That's just the reality. So the reality is, and I want everyone to really think about what I'm going to say here because this is kind of a hard one to swallow, I think. The agent life cycle on a team, on average, is 2 years, correct?
Yep.
On average. So my question for you would be, do you want them to be the most successful they can possibly be in those 2 years? And when we talk about success, we talk about more money coming in. So why would you want to clip their wings when they most likely are going to leave? I shouldn't say most likely, but the numbers show us that the average they're going to stay on the team is 2 years. So clip their wings right away so they have less success, have more desire to leave because they can't truly be who they are. They can't truly execute their brand how they want to. Or show them the ways to do it, allow them the space to do it, still operating under the umbrella of your team brand, and have more success come in, both like monetarily and as well as like who they are as an agent. Yeah. So this is something, when you say no, you can't have a personal brand, you just operate under the team brand. And you say, no, you're saying no to more profit. So this is something that is so confusing for me. Now, if agents stuck on a team for 10 to 15 years on average, I may, think a little differently about this. But the reality is we have the numbers, we know what happens. Why do you not want to get the most out of them? And then if they do leave, cheer them on, like by allowing them to operate a brand. It just doesn't make sense. And I have a feeling that because real estate and as far as the marketing goes, it's so archaic, and we've said this so many times, this is not going to change for quite a while. And the teams that do allow this are going to see more success within their agents. I'm not saying the agents aren't going to leave in the 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. What I'm saying is you're going to be making more money off them while they're there.
Kristi, talk a little bit about like the successes that we've seen on our team by allowing agents to build their own brand, and then talk about like what the flip side of that looks like too.
Okay, that's a great question, and something that if you're like questioning whether or not you should allow your agents to have their own brand on your team or not, we have seen, so basically we have seen both sides of it glaringly. I'm going to be totally transparent here. We've seen both sides of it, and the flip side is hard. So let's talk about the success side first. So we do like the brand deep dive at Agents Come On. And, sometimes there's a little bit of a struggle and like a little bit of that figuring out space, right? It's that work through of how do I actually execute this? How do I actually get my content out? Like, I'm afraid to like showcase this part of my brand or that kind of thing. And like Beth mentioned in the very beginning, we did this intensive and so much more came out of it than we could have ever imagined. But one thing is, so they walk away with a 30-day execution plan, and then you have to actually execute it, right? So
the hard part.
It's the hard part. And we all struggle with imposter syndrome. And like, what if I put this out there? Or is this client going to think this? And like, all these things can go through our heads. But we have seen firsthand, time and time again, when an agent actually, when they have fine-tuned their brand, they've gone through that process, they are speaking in their brand voice, and then they actually execute that. They have it's like instant. They start seeing results instantly, would you say?
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to like name any names, but like a really recent example is like an agent that we were working with not executing their brand at the level they needed to, just like speaking so much real estate, like not really connecting with that client. I'm in this news flash. No one wants to hear about real estate. You should be talking about real estate like 5% of the time. And most of us are talking about it 99% of the time. And so this is also something really hard when there's so much chatter. It's so loud out there and we're seeing so much of this. And that makes us think that we should be doing that too. And the reality is it's the opposite. So this agent in particular, same thing. Like, I should be talking real estate because this is what I know. And like, I need to speak to my clients and that kind of thing. The second that they posted, another pillar of their brand, connection. The second the email goes out to about that really speaks to your audience and not just about real estate, connection, like responses. Like, Beth, why don't you share what happened to you when we very first started your email list? Let's share that story.
Oh, like the one where I gave you pushback forever. I'm like, no, I don't have the bandwidth for this. No. And you're like, we're doing emails, so get on board. And start, here's your topic, start writing.
We're not going to be selling houses with likes on Instagram.
Yeah. And I gave it a lot of pushback. And this is just like quintessential. Like, the email went out, whatever, let's just say Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And literally by like 9:05, I had a call from a friend and said, hey, can you come talk to me and I'm going to hire you to list my house? And I'm literally like, no fucking way.
Like, yeah!
Like, no fucking way. Like, that is the holy grail of real estate, when you get a come list me call and someone is calling you and they're not even shopping you against anyone else. And they basically like, you have the job. Come tell me what I need to do to get my house ready and bring paperwork. I'm like, no way. I called Kristi. I'm like, no fucking way. Is this like beginner's luck? Yes. And she's like, yes, this is what I've been screaming all along. And it's been like that really ever since. Not every single week, but like, it's what's built the know, like, and trust factor.
Yes.
People already knew that I know about real estate, but like, what else do they know about me now that they didn't know about me prior to close to going on 3 years ago of me sending emails?
The reality is they buy from your why, not your what. And that is something that is so hard for us to get over.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge miss as far as any business owner in marketing. And Beth's story is just like, she's not been in this for years and years and years. In real estate, yes, but not in the brand operating space for very long. We're only a couple months in when we did emails.
Right.
So like, her story is a really great example because we were just executing Instagram really at that point. And like, did we dabble in Facebook and then the emails? It was just like not that far in. And so what we've seen on the team is the second that an agent, really refines their brand voice, they speak, they, put it out there directly at their clients, then it's like an immediate return. I'm not saying it's going to be a come list me call right away, but you are going to start feeling that, and that energy creates more energy. And then you start to like be in a different playing field. And I more recently called Beth. I'm like, I'm in tears because I'm so frustrated because I feel like I'm screaming these things to the rooftops and it's not connecting. Like, how else can I make this connect? Because I so believe in it. And then we see it happen. And we see the results, and I'm like, oh my God, now I'm going to cry again because I've not completely lost my mind. So this is something where the success in it is so huge. And Could Beth have received that call anyways? Yeah, I doubt that call was coming that day.
Not that day.
No, you put it front of mind, and that's the whole reason. And I won't go on and on and on about why we operate a brand, right? Or we execute a brand. But the reality is people want to hear from you, and they want to hear from your why. And that is what needs to connect with them. So that is how we are directly seeing it with our agents. And it's so impactful. I mean, Carrie on the team, have her send an email and see what happens. She is like...
I know.
She's incredible. And so we've even worked with her to refine her brand and the connections that she's making. And it's not all about selling. It's about building, brand awareness, and which then helps the team. It brings awareness to the team's brand. And that is, like we had just mentioned, something that is such a huge miss when you're like stuck under this giant, it just feels so corporate team, and you don't get to have your own individual voice. Why do I care about working with someone under that big umbrella anyways? Right. It just doesn't make sense. So we've seen great success, and it's pretty immediate. Once we actually see the execution happen, it's pretty immediate. And I'm not saying this is just from one social media post. I'm saying you refine your brand, you get it to where it needs to be, sending email, you reach them on different platforms, and boom, it comes back.
Yeah.
So I challenge you all, if you're not doing this, whether or not you run a team or you're on a team, go try it. Just go try it. Just go experiment and let me know what happens. Now, the flip side of that, we have been in the shoes, and we see what it is like when you allow someone, an agent on your team, multiple agents, operate a personal brand and then leave. We know what that looks like. So I just want to validate that. It is scary. It sucks. It makes so many not good feelings come up, especially when you help them so deeply get to the place that they were at. We know what that's like. And that's a really hard thing to deal with because you want success for everyone. And I truly do. I want everyone to have bigger lives. I know that you do as well, Beth. That's
my whole why.
It's your whole why. And when you put all this energy and effort and you don't see the efforts being put in while they're on the team, and then they happen to leave the team, that's a totally different, situation. And that's just going to exist. There's nothing you can do about it. They're going to leave anyways. So again, do you just try to help them when they're on the team? I think you do. I think you help them. I think you come from contribution. I think you help them refine their voice and where they're going and how to serve their clients. And whether or not they leave and whether or not you get any credit for it later is honestly none of your business. But it's part of it. So there are two sides to it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the accountability, because I think it's really hard to get agents in a space if they're not doing it regularly, about putting out regular emails and doing regular social media, but also still doing all the basics. We've had a lot of navigation around this topic too on our team. Yeah.
So accountability is hard in general. Can we just call that out?
It is hard. So freaking hard.
And when you're an entrepreneur, you're in charge of creating and executing your own schedule. It's all on you. And that's that whole thing with you get to work for yourself, or you're so lucky. And it's sure, I'm lucky. I love this, right? However, there's a lot more that comes with it, because no one is telling you have to do X, Y, Z at exactly this time. Well, for the most part. So when it comes to accountability, we definitely, and Beth, you can speak more on this from the real estate side. We use check-ins and checklists, and we have implemented EOS into our team structure this year, which has been very helpful. But there also needs to be creative accountability, creative and marketing accountability. So and it can't be an either or. I think it is sometimes very easy to be the market sucks. I'm just going to go fuck around on social. Or
this is the fun stuff.
Yeah, some people think it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's, what it is? It's a really good distraction for the work you actually need to be doing.
Absolutely.
And so that's not creative accountability. That is not brand accountability. So I think that I don't even know that they're fine lines. I think that it's actually very, very apparent. Social media is a really great place to waste a lot of time. Your email, less so. But if you have an expectation of your team, if your agents all know, they need to send an email every single week. It needs to be brand aligned. It needs to work with underneath the team's umbrella brand. That needs to happen. You need to be posting X amount of times on social media. Okay, cool. That is not in replacement of any of those basics of real estate. That is an addition to. And so that is the reality of operating a brand, building a brand, and the necessity of running a business in 2023. You can't get around that. So I think this goes back to really figuring out how to structure your days and your productivity and really the expectations of the team. So I also think if you're running a team, you need to take ownership in the fact that you need to be making it clear to your agents the expectations of them.
Yes.
Throughout your day. And this is something that we learned so much at the Fast Forward conference in the spring. And so when it comes to like creative accountability, branding accountability, my email took me 4 hours, so I couldn't make those calls. It's unacceptable. Like that's completely unacceptable. So making sure that you have some sort of checklist, some sort of accountability, maybe an accountability partner. We use different things on the team, but whatever that looks like, it can't be an either or. It needs to be both. And it can't be in replacement of those hours of calling people or, connecting with your clients. And so really honestly pushing back to episode 45 where we talk about productivity hacks that create freedom, that would be a really good one to check out for you if you're the founder of a team or if you're an agent on a team, because it really shows you ways and how to structure your days to make sure you're checking off all of those things.
It's huge. Yeah. ROI is like one of the highest with your brand awareness. Like talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. I'm so glad that you brought this up because we talk about ROI. Realtors were obsessed with how much money we're making.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with how much money a
the
deal
ROI
was.
on everything.
We're obsessed. Yeah, the ROI on everything. We're obsessed with how much, like, what is our commission? What is this going to be once I pay this person out? All of this stuff. It's just so much about money and so much about that bottom line. Yet we don't think about our biggest ROI. I'm going to go out on a really big limb saying this, but I believe this. So come at me if you want. I truly believe our biggest ROI is your brand awareness. And this I would have sworn was email marketing a year ago. And email marketing is still number 2 to this. That's just the reality. But when we talk ROI, our brand awareness is that big net that we've cast, that we've reached as many people as possible. And it's the thing that is the most necessary right now. Now, the thing with that is, unlike your commission check, it is not tangible. It is something that you can throw tons of Google ad dollars at. You can post on social media. You can send those emails and you're like, I'm getting all this, all these referrals and I'm, reaching all these clients and talking to them and all these deals, but you can't say, well, it's brand awareness because it all falls under it. So that is something that I also think is a huge miss right now when it comes to allowing agents on your team to operate a brand and how team brands are being executed, because your brand awareness is probably one of the greatest tools in your tool belt right now.
That's huge. Mm-hmm. I like that you're just like putting it out there.
Yeah.
You're like, this is it.
Come at me.
Yeah, but also just you can't get away from the basics. You still have to lead generate. You still have to make your phone calls. Mm-hmm. You still have to reach out. You still have to follow up. You still have to like build that relationship. But your brand is also doing that for you at the same time.
And I mean, Beth, I think that you can speak on this very openly and honestly. If you have seen a huge shift just this year and how brand awareness is just like, boo, like the floodgates have opened. And does it take a little bit of time? Absolutely. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, really. But it is going to be your strongest tool. Like I just said, it's going to be your strongest tool in your tool belt if you are doing it correctly and if you allow it to happen. So again, back to those agents on your team, sure, some of them will leave and it will upset you. They're going to leave anyways, most likely. Let them be as successful as possible while they're on your team.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll stick around.
Yeah. Okay, so what if you're an agent listening to this episode and you run a team and you're going to say to yourself, I'm totally going to give this a shot. I'm going to, have a team build a brand and have the agents build a brand. Like, how would you tell a team lead to do this and like meld it all together and make it all work? What would you tell them?
This could be a podcast in itself, I think.
Or a couple.
So let us know if you want to hear more about this. I'll nutshell this as like much as I possibly can here. And hopefully this answers this question pretty well. So first thing is you need to define the voice of the team. You need to identify if there are any things that we don't say, we don't do, how we operate. And I know many teams, it's a numbers game of how many people you bring on. And you're just trying to like get as many people on because you know that the turnover is so high. However, if you are bringing people on that genuinely care about their clients, they genuinely care about the team, then they're going to want what's best for the team. So this is something where you need to talk about the verbiage that's used. If there's anything totally off the table, that would need to be discussed so it makes sure it works underneath the team's umbrella. If as far as like branding, if you have your visuals, making sure that those are all really consistent brand colors, which is sometimes a struggle even still to get everyone on board with, because it's a lot to understand and take in. So really making sure that they're using any visual brand identity that you have within their brand, that they are using language that makes sense for the team's brand. Now, when I say that, their brand voice is going to be different, and you are going to have to accept that. And if you have them on your team, you're going to have to trust that they are going to say things in a way that represents your team as best as possible. If they don't, that is a whole other conversation. And then you have to, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't allow them to execute their brand. Perhaps you should be wondering, when they go out with clients, are they saying the same thing? And does that represent your brand? See, so that's also something that is not really thought about. Like, oh, I don't like how they posted on social because of this. Have a conversation with them on how that doesn't represent the team really well, or themselves, because you don't want that language spoken in any way, regardless of if it's visual, if it's in person, that kind of thing. So I really think like refining that and making sure as a team you have the same values and those are put to the forefront is very important. Also making sure that it fits and it feels good. So you're going to know these humans on your team. You're going to know how they speak, and they're going to say things that maybe you wouldn't say it exactly like that. That's okay. Like, release the control, release it and see what happens. Now, if they're digging themselves a grave because of what they're doing, they're going to see that they need help, and hopefully you're able to help them. We pay close attention to what our agents on the team are doing. I know not everyone has like my role on their team, but some do. Some have something similar, or at least some of the hats I wear, or go reach out and get some help to help them refine their brand. But I truly believe if you invest in this one area with them, it's going to like help you more than you're investing. It's going to bring you back more dollars than not doing it. So just making sure that the language used makes sense, isn't offensive, and that is across the board. Same with like Beth, like when they go on a meeting, right? You expect that your agents are representing your brand and the team's brand in a specific way. It is no different there than on social media or in their emails. So just really making sure that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's honestly not that hard. I think we overthink this a lot.
Totally.
And we're like, it has to be just like this. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's a rule you made up because some speaker at some conference told you that. It's not the truth. It's not reality. It's just not.
Well, like, so what if someone, let's like notch it back even a little bit. Like what did you say to someone that like they need to like build a brand to begin with?
Yeah. Like an agent on a team or a team.
Either or.
Go check out our episodes for sure. It'll be very helpful. I would start with going back to episodes 62 and 63, where we chat all about building a real estate brand, part 1 and 2. These are going to be really helpful, really good building blocks for you to get like the foundation of that brand going and then kind of go from there. But you need a place to start. And if you feel like your team brand is hitting a lot of misses, we have tons of information in those episodes, as well as like in many other podcast episodes. I would start there. You can also head to Bus Bench Babes Insiders and download the 7 things to ask yourself before you create a brand. I think that's a really, really great place to start as well. And you can get to that on girlgetyourfaceoffabusbench.com, right there in the show notes for that episode, or in our Instagram at Bus Bench Babes. You can go ahead and grab that in our link tree. So those would be a couple of really good places to start. And then just ask yourself these questions, I think. Like, do you want your agents to be the most successful? If you're an agent on a team, do you want to have the most success that you possibly can? Like, does it mean I get X more amount of time with my friends and family, down the road because I implemented this brand and I have brand awareness now and it's actually like working for me. So I would start there just to get those foundational pieces in place and then just start like opening your mind to the potential that you would allow your teammates to do it as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, that was like chock full of like all the good stuff.
And the not good stuff.
Yeah.
It's not all roses. Like, let's be honest. Like, you go ahead and
Nothing with running a team is, though,
it's
right?
It's not. There are so many curveballs and you get roadblocks and you're not able to, you can't control everything. And there's so much in letting go. And one of the awesome things about you, Beth, is you are so good at putting the right people in the seats on the bus. Like, you really are.
I did read the energy bus.
Did you?
There's a whole book about that, of putting the people in the right seats on the right bus.
So you're good at this. I think it's one of your superpowers. And I think I've said that many times in the podcast before. And I know that that's a struggle. When it's your baby, your business, as an entrepreneur, I don't care if you're in real estate or you're in any other field, your business is your baby. And it is so hard to release that control. And it's literally preventing you from growing.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I want my agents to shine.
Yes.
I don't want this to be the Beth show.
And maybe we will find that our agents stick around longer. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Maybe you will find that they stick around longer. Not all of them. Like, you're going to get turnover. It's the reality.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, we can't control that. And life happens and things happen. But what if they stick around longer because they're fully supported, allowed to truly be themselves, to truly execute their brand, and you get to see that, feel that, cheer them on, and
it'd be the best.
You know, your ROI is a little bit better because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the worst thing.
No, I love that. It's a lot. It was kind of a heavy episode.
You think so?
Like, in a good way, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's me chatting about branding again. Do. Here we go.
Kristi could do this with her eyes closed.
Maybe I did.
Well, I hope you got some awesome takeaways. And if you ever have questions about this, reach out, shoot us a DM. We love talking about this kind of stuff. And I'm happy to talk about it from the team leader's vantage point. Kristi would love to talk about it from the creative standpoint. And like, we're an open book.
Yeah.
Like, we share the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if this is something that you've been toying with on your team, reach out. We would love to chat.
We would.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So until next time, bus bench babes.
Remember to keep your face off a bus bench and keep being the badass boss babe that you are. Okay, girls, are you feeling as inspired as we are? We're over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of the Girl, Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast.
If you want more, head over to girlgetyourfaceoffabusbench.com for show notes and more episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. They mean the world to us, and they're what keep us going.
Girl, thanks for being here.